What if you spent your whole life trying to solve one problem, and just when you finally found the answer, you realized it was too late? Our hero, Shin Sang-hyun, possessed a rare artifact-devouring skill, but he never truly understood how to use it. It took him nearly 30 years of his career to figure out how to actually eat an artifact, and by then, he was already 55, far behind his peers. But fate showed him mercy, granting him a chance to go back 30 years in time. Now, with the body of a 25-year-old and the knowledge of the future, Shin Sang-hyun holds immense potential to walk the path of strength and become a high-level ranker. The story begins when our hero, Shin Sang-hyun, finally clears the dungeon, Ancient Dragon Nest. Shin is completely spent after all the effort, frustrated that he still has to work so hard even though he is almost 60. As a swordsman, he has lived 30 years of professional life, but he doesn't have any special achievements besides being the country's top 100 swordsman, which he doesn't consider a big deal because there are already thousands of players in this world. He looks at his reward and wonders whether he got a skill book this time. He has eaten artifacts before because of his skill and ponders whether he can eat this one too. Then he notices a notification stating that the constellation Late Bloomer model has been extended. A man steps out from a portal. His system informs him that this man is a student of the Late Bloomer model who praises him for his hard work, speaking in Hindi, which Shin doesn't understand. He also compliments Shin for his impeccable final strike. Now Shin understands that this student is his contracted constellation. He awkwardly thanks him for choosing Shin as his contract, because Shin is nothing but a third-rate swordsman. Not only that, he receives other benefits as well. When he reaches level 850, all artifacts and titles will be doubled. At level 900, his stats will be tripled. However, Shin is quite disappointed, as his level is only 650. He knows he can't be this constellation's contractor because he doesn't meet the requirements. Then the student urges him to eat the book, which he was going to do anyway. He exclaims that he is going to eat it. Devouring an artifact is the only skill he acquired when he awakened as a player. Initially, he doesn't understand his skill and tries to cook the artifacts in order to eat them. He even fries them but feels nothing. This experiment ends up costing him 30 years. Eventually, he uses mana synchronization with an artifact of a suitable rank. This trick helps him activate his Devour artifact skill. But the problem is, he realizes this too late. Other players had already gotten stronger and far ahead of him because they started early. Then he looks inside the book and, irritated, asks the student whether it should have some instructions since it's a skill book. The student replies that he has very limited information about this particular book. He happily suggests that Shin wait and try using mana synchronization again. After all, Shin obviously has lots of time to spare. But Shin is angry at hearing this. He yells that he doesn't have much time left. He's already almost 60. If he had a child at 30, that child would be turning 30 now. Or even earlier, he might have grandchildren. At that, the student apologizes for his words, but Shin tries to shake it off. The Late Bloomer model student isn't wrong. It's just that Shin's life is full of regret. He then remembers a person from his youth whom he admired and wanted to be like. Then he states with a tired sigh that it's too late to fulfill this dream because he's too old. He wishes he were a little younger. At that, the student's expression turns meaningful. He realizes that he's going to retire anyway. He asks the constellation to go to another player, as he's going to cancel their contract. But when he turns, the constellation is already ready with active magic, though Shin doesn't understand what's happening. This is his last scene, as it's the final memory of his 50-year-old self. His system informs him that the Late Bloomer model student has used the essence he had been experimenting with. With that, regression begins. The scene shifts to the Player G reporter, Park Jung-min, asking whether dungeons and gates are essentially the best playgrounds that help train players. Hyunjung Corporation's CEO, Han Hyunjung, answers that in this way, dungeons can become stepping stones for players. But gates are literally the entrances to other dimensions that help them witness the unknown. With these two regions, players can learn and thrive. The debate continues on TV while a very young version of Shin watches. While cleaning his dagger, he comments on how he has regressed. It's been a while since he last watched this series. Now he needs to grasp the situation, even though it's already been 4 days since he awakened 30 years in the past. He remembers that he had lost consciousness, and when he wake up, he was in his studio apartment, back in the past. He doesn't understand how he's in his 25-year-old body with all the memories of his previous life intact. He thinks hard, but as far as he can tell, the only reason for his regression is the doing of the constellation. With a smile, he reflects on his confused mind but still plans to go out and work out. He looks at his dagger, which is a Venomith dagger, a low-rank weapon. But the good thing is, Shin already knows its hidden skill. It has an absorption rate of 10% for bronze artifacts and 20% if he has used the artifact previously. He knows the absorption rate is low, but he also knows that the real value lies in its hidden skill. He has already initiated the absorption with mana synchronization. His system informs him that he is entering the gap of consciousness. The gap of consciousness is basically the space that helps him devour an artifact. As usual, Shin feels quite nervous coming here. because it's like a surprise menu waiting for him. The next moment, he sees a whole chicken cooking in a pan. Finally, the pan is placed in front of him while his system informs him that the preparation to absorb the dagger has been completed. He looks at the rotisserie BBQ chicken drizzled with olive oil. He's glad to see a normal dish in front of him instead of something weird to represent the dagger. With that, he starts eating the chicken, thinking that he could always devour artifacts if they're served like this. With that, the absorption begins. He permanently acquires 2 points of agility. Not only that, he also acquires the skill Demon's Bash. Then his system informs him that after the absorption of the artifact, it will disappear permanently. With that, he's back at his home. He regrets a little about the dagger being gone but consoles himself that he wasn't going to use it anyway. The important thing is that he got the skill he wanted. Now he should go. Meanwhile, at Dungeon 85 in Team Yoon's squad, someone approaches the team leader, Yoon. Yoon asks the reason for the Porter group leader's visit. The Porter leader explains that one of his team members has left the job. He was a newcomer named Shin, our hero. At that, Yoon consoles him, while saying that he shouldn't worry about Shin because he's going to join the players. The Porter team leader is quite baffled to hear the news. Yoon himself has approved this and even asks whether the Porter leader has any problem with it. The Porter leader explains that Shin has just recently awakened and hasn't even completed the player academy. It has never happened before that Yoon added someone like Shin to his team. Besides, there's a risk of imbalance in his own team due to issues in work distribution. So, Yoon firmly calls the team leader and asks whether he hasn't taken care of everything, including his team and the contribution system. His response shocks the Porter leader, who apologizes. When he walks away, Yoon's subordinate praises him for shutting down the Porter leader, but also expresses curiosity, as it's unusual for Yoon to accept someone like Shin into his team. Yoon laughs at that and explains that he can use Shin as a sacrifice. If anyone needs to die, Shin will die. That'll also shut the Porters' mouths. Besides, he believes that as a level 1 player, Shin won't be able to continue anyway. His subordinate understands him. At that moment, Shin greets them and introduces himself. The Porters glare at him with hateful eyes. Shin is very nervous under everyone's stares, but he thinks that they could at least bother to hide their expressions. Then Yoon greets him back with a quip, saying that he thought Shin is going to be late on his very first day as a player. He then notices that Shin has a great sword as his weapon. Shin sheepishly answers that he's studied a lot of videos on longsword techniques. Yoon reminds him that the longsword is the hardest kind of sword to wield. Shin replies that he's confident he can at least protect himself, so Yoon should trust him. Then Yoon enthusiastically puts his arm around Shin's shoulder, expressing that Shin has spirit, just like him. He then exclaims and orders his team to start the dungeon raid. With that, they enter the dungeon while Yoon instructs Shin to stand by at the entrance once he enters. Everyone discusses how many monsters they're going to kill. However, Yoon keeps his eyes on Shin with a thoughtful expression. He scorns the fact that Shin studied sword fighting through YouTube. He thinks Shin has become arrogant just because of his awakening and getting player rank. He assumes Shin has a death wish. But either way, it still fits into his plan, because this orc dungeon is famous for being the wailing wall for newbies. Yoon grins evilly, thinking Shin is going to realize his place very soon. But later, his grin twists into a grimace of shock the moment he finds the corpses of numerous orcs killed by Shin, forcing him to question Shin's real identity. Orcs are fictional creatures often seen in fantasy universes. Most of the time, people assume them to be weak compared to mighty beings like dragons. In this regard, orcs are seen as chaotic, stupid, and inferior. This is precisely why new players often underestimate them and rush in, thinking they can easily defeat them. One such player now charges at an orc, casually assuming that an orc's fighting style is simple. But in the next instant, the orc grabs the player, standing an average of 250 cm tall and weighing 180 kilos. This physical disparity is their main advantage, giving them the upper hand over humans. It's for this reason that orcs have earned the nickname the Wall of Lament. Now Yoon is seen leading his team inside the dungeon. One of the senior players reminds Shin that he won't receive any special treatment just because he's new. The Porter leader, meanwhile, holds a grudge against Shin for becoming a player immediately after awakening. Shin simply smiles and assures them that he'll do his best, earning only a scoff from the senior. Then Shin pauses for a moment and asks whether he can fight on the front lines if he's on his own, which momentarily baffles the senior. Before he can answer, he spots an orc behind them. Shin is visibly excited for his first battle and prepares to engage, but in the next moment, the senior player shoves the orc away with his shield. He curses Shin for trying to use a sword when his movements are that slow. The senior snaps that he doesn't need Shin's help, he just needs him to prove his skills. While listening to the rant, Shin calmly coaxes him to look ahead. Cursing again, the senior attempts to attack the orc, but his eyes widen in shock as the orc begins to overpower him. Yoon intervenes just in time and somehow pushes the orc back. Furious, he shouts at Shin and the rest of his companions that they're not on a picnic. Everyone apologizes and is amazed by Yoon's skill. Yoon asks everyone to stay back as he prepares to handle the orc. The orc charges at him, but Yoon blocks the attack and, in the next moment, stabs the orc in its heart. Everyone is excited, hoping that the orc is dead. However, the orc grins and raises its axe, attempting to attack Yoon again. Yoon swiftly dodges the attack while Shin watches everything with a calm expression. Shin believes that Yoon is the highest level player in the team, but in reality, Yoon is only level 50 and struggles to hit the orc. Yoon tries again, this time successfully stabbing the orc. The orc falls, leading everyone to believe it might be dead. The team is amazed to see Yoon kill an orc on his own. Yoon instructs everyone to move ahead, but his command is interrupted when they witness a mass of orcs charging toward them. Panic sets in as they see the incoming orcs, and they turn to Yoon for guidance. Yoon suggests retreating for the safety of the team, knowing that he's struggling to defeat even one orc, and an entire army is approaching. Shin, however, surprises everyone when he offers his services to fight the orcs. The others think he has gone crazy. Yoon tries to reason with Shin, telling him that while he's excited about his awakening, but he should be more cautious. But Shin ignores Yoon's words and dashes toward the orcs. The others warn him that he's going to get himself killed. However, with a swift, decisive swing of his blade, Shin kills one of the orcs, splitting it in two. Everyone is shocked to see that a newbie managed to kill a high-level orc. Shin, on the other hand, wonders why he didn't get the nice strike on the orcs he usually makes on an orc's line because of his first-level status. The remaining orcs, furious at the death of their companion, charge toward Shin. But Shin is unfazed. Despite being a first-level player, he has plenty of experience in his arsenal. He readies his sword, determined to take them on. One by one, Shin slashes through the orcs. One attempts to attack him, but Shin dodges effortlessly, breaking its mask with a swing of his sword. He casually states that he's killed plenty of orcs in his younger days. Meanwhile, the spectators are in complete shock, questioning whether this is really the same Shin they know. Finally, Shin prepares for the last battle, facing the armored orc, the dungeon's final boss. The armored orc roars in fury as it rushes toward Shin, intent on finishing him off. Shin is ready and they clash, sword against axe. Yoon, witnessing the entire ordeal, shouts at Shin that his attack isn't going to work. The armored orc's skin is far too thick. Meanwhile, the orc stares at Shin with a glint in its eyes. Shin thinks it's just being dramatic. It's time for Shin to use his newly acquired skill, Demon Bash. When the orc places its weapon on Shin's shoulder, he tells it to stay still with a smile. The orc yells, but Demon Bash stuns him for a moment. Therefore, in the very next moment, it's flat on the ground, knocked down by Shin. Yoon and his minions are left stunned, unable to believe what they're seeing. The corpses of the orcs in front of them are taken down by a player who awakened just 3 days ago, which seem almost unreal. Yoon thinks about Shin's hindrance skill, referring to Shin's Demon Bash skill. He remembers that even top-ranked players only manage to activate the skill for 1.5 seconds. And yet, here's Shin, already amazing with a greatsword, claiming he learned how to wield it just by watching YouTube videos. Yoon makes a mental note to ask which videos he watched. He's completely flabbergasted to realize that Shin actually used hindrance against a fully armored orc. Meanwhile, Shin levels up. Not only that, he also receives an F-rank title tagged as Fearless Immature Puppy. With this title, he gains 5 points in evasion. Shin isn't particularly eager about leveling up, but he does enjoy stacking up evasion points. He also has one available stat point that he can use to boost any of his attributes. He already knows exactly which stat he wants to increase. He's learned, albeit a bit too late in life, that luck is the most important thing. So, he raises his luck stat, knowing it will help him enhance his skills and increase the chances of acquiring rare artifact drops. For him, it's a necessity. His system notifies him that his luck stat has been successfully increased. Then Yoon speaks up and asks if he's really Shin. He follows up by asking where Shin learned the hindrance skill from. Shin turns to him, silently thinking that he obviously can't reveal the truth, that he's from the future and using the skills of his past self. So he lies and says he got the skill when he awakened. But Yoon doesn't buy it. It doesn't add up. Yoon, eyeing Shin's sword, remarks that he might have just gotten lucky and gotten his hands on a diamond rank artifact, or something even higher. At that, Shin extends his sword toward him and tells Yoon to check for himself. Yoon agrees and takes the sword. He inspects it closely. It's a faded greatsword, which is a completely ordinary weapon. Yoon exclaims in disbelief that the sword is just another run-of-the-mill piece, and Shin really does possess that kind of skill. He mutters a curse under his breath, frustrated that even after 2 years of experience as a player and reaching level 50, he still hasn't acquired a skill like hindrance. And now, to top it off, he'll have to share his pay with Shin. His thoughts are interrupted by one of his team members, who informs him that the middle boss has awakened. With a grumpy expression, he orders his team to move out. Then he turns to Shin, thanks him begrudgingly for taking care of the minions, but warns him not to overstep again, because he won't be able to win against the demon orc they're about to face. At that, Shin smirks, suddenly remembering the real reason he joined this party after returning back in time. He then addresses Yoon and challenges him, asking if he's scared that Shin might actually have the skill to kill the demon orc on his own and claim the artifact. He chuckles, adding that it would only be fair, since rewards are distributed based on each member's contribution. The artifact Shin is referring to is the Crimson Stone, which can only be obtained by defeating the demon orc. The catch, however, is that no one really knows whether the Crimson Stone will appear or not until after the fight, because it rarely appears. But Shin knows with certainty that this particular demon orc will drop the Crimson Stone. In his past life, his team had failed to defeat the demon orc. Another team managed to kill it instead, and walked away with the Crimson Stone. Back then, Shin sat with a defeated expression, watching the other team cheer and congratulate their leader for acquiring the Crimson Stone, an artifact capable of fetching an enormous price. But what caught Shin's attention even more was the unique ability the artifact held, a delay skill. That was the moment Shin became obsessed. Now in the present, the delay skill is exactly what he desperately wants. Then, he asked the team leader if the reward is given according to the contribution of the team members. Then there shouldn't be any issue if he defeats the demon orc by himself. Yoon stays silent for a moment. Shin, however, desperately wants the delay skill, even though he knows he'll gain a bad reputation for being arrogant as a beginner. He knows they won't take him seriously. And that's exactly what happens when one of the team members asks if he's gone mad. Just after defeating a bunch of orcs, he's already thinking of himself as a big shot. He tries to calm them down, but they're interrupted by Yoon's voice, who tells Shin to do as he wishes. The players are shocked by Yoon's decision, but Yoon adds a condition. Shin can enter the dungeon and kill the demon orc, but only if Yoon fails to kill it first. Shin's face lights up at the condition. He tells them he'll step out of the battle. Yoon tells him again to do as he wishes, moving ahead with his minions following behind. On his way, he thinks of Shin as nothing more than an arrogant fool who believes he's a big deal just because he got a great skill. As he opens the door, Yoon is determined to clear the dungeon and shut Shin's mouth. He wants to prove that experience is superior to skill. He opens the door, and his system notifies him that he has entered the room of the middle boss. There stands a formidable middle boss named the Bloodthirsty Demon Orc. Yoon orders everyone to prepare for battle. While looking at the boss, he recalls the information he received claiming that this boss is easier to defeat. He instructs his team to form a circle around the boss and attack from the rear. He scoffs at Shin's wish to defeat the demon orc solo. Determined not to give Shin any chance, he rushes toward the boss, exclaiming that he's taking the lead. Moments later, he's thrown to the ground, his head injured and bleeding. Yoon gets up, dazed, wondering what exactly just happened. Shin, watching from a distance, thinks he had assumed they'd retreat, but instead, they foolishly charged at the demon orc head-on. He remembers that the defeat last time happened for the exact same reason. Yoon's team members look to him, asking what they should do next. One of them reminds him they'll die if they continue like this. While looking at the orc, Yoon recalls the previous one, which had also been unexpectedly strong. He regrets relying on false information from the market. He then turns to his team and orders them to retreat for now. When they see the smiling face of our boy, they get quite irritated. One of them asks what's the deal with him. However, Yoon insists they retreat, pointing out that due to the demon orc's low vision, they can escape from its flank. Everyone feels grateful for the order. Yoon then turns to Shin and warns him not to blame him if he dies. With his sword in hand, Shin assures him that he needn't worry because he's not going to die. Now, he stands before the demon orc, which is yelling and charging toward him, but our boy is completely ready. He knows that if he looks at their stat difference, he wouldn't have any chance of winning against the demon orc. But the experience from his past life is his greatest advantage. He attacks the demon orc. Meanwhile, Yoon's team turns around, baffled as they hear the loud clank, a sound that means Shin has managed to deflect the boss's axe. Shin, however, mockingly complains that his hand hurts, saying that all he can do is deflect. He then looks keenly at the Crimson Stone. With this stone, he can gain the delay skill, which he can combine with his Demon Bash. The 2-second stun from Demon Bash could be drastically improved with the delay skill. Not only that, he's sure his main skill, Devour Artifact, can help him combine different skills. This is why he gets the idea to combine his Demon Bash with a skill that can increase the stun effect, potentially allowing him to achieve an infinite stun while fighting. He realizes that the delay skill is key to making this possible. He then challenges the demon orc to come at him. The boss angrily tries to strike, but Shin is pleased with his progress. This part of his plan is working. He's seeing the demon orc's weak spot. He dodges the attack, causing the demon orc's axe to stick into the ground. Without wasting any time, Shin activates Demon Bash, stunning the demon orc for 2 seconds. Meanwhile, Yoon is baffled to see that the skill can be used on the middle boss as well. Shin tries to mock the demon orc, pointing out that orcs have simple fighting patterns, yet this one is supposed to be a boss. But he's stunned when, in the next moment, the demon orc breaks free from the stun and tries to attack him. It's a close call, but Shin manages to block the strike with his sword. He then remembers that the demon orc has a regeneration ability, which can counter his demon bash and lift the stun. Now Shin needs to wait 15 seconds to use demon bash again. This is exactly why he needs the delay skill. He realizes he has no other choice but to defeat the demon orc without it. With that, he charges forward with his sword, facing the demon orc head-on. Yoon watches the fight, but his subordinate reminds him to retreat, as it seems Shin is not winning.